This is The Extra Point, an Arizona's Family Originals podcast, sponsored by your Phoenix Suns.
Well, it is a day that many of us expected here at Arizona's Family and in the sports world. Ray Anderson, no longer the athletic director at Arizona State University. The timing of it, though, came down early this morning, kind of as we made our way into the afternoon, and I think there was a bit of a surprise. So to break all this down, Nick King, you've been on the air talking about this all day, and let's just start with your reaction. Ray Anderson, no longer the athletic director at Arizona State. What is your reaction?
Yeah, not a surprise. The thing I was saying on TV was just the noise got too loud. So the chants at UCLA were somewhat amusing, but we've seen billboards. You go to a game, people are wearing T-shirts that say "Fire Ray Anderson." It's not the first time that you could hear people in the crowd when they see him yelling things at Ray. And it goes beyond just like the diehard fans to the boosters and the people that are supplying the athletic department with money or not, withholding some of that money as Arizona State athletics has fallen behind. And it was just the move to the new conference. It was the right time. And Kenny Dillingham talked today about like the next month is very important for them in recruiting and the window. Like they need to make things happen now. It was time to do it.
Well, and I don't know if they make up any type of NIL shortfall here. And I mean, it's going to take them years. They're going to need to really rally the Valley and, ignite the Valley. And what's the word again? I'm trying to activate the Valley. That's what it is. and that's what Kenny Dillon, and I think that win over UCLA on Saturday night activated the Valley. I think when you put that up against, hey, the Suns are playing and Kyler Murray has a great Sunday and the Diamondbacks just went to the World Series, there's only so many entertainment dollars. There's only so many sports dollars to go around. So you have to cut through the clutter. You have to get a big win like Arizona State did in the Rose Bowl. And to have that big win, their biggest win since before COVID, and then to have chance of, Ray, you suck. I mean, that did him in. And I think as you read the statement here from Ray Anderson, quote, "It's been a privilege to serve Arizona State's athletic director as athletic director for nearly a decade. We have entered an unprecedented era where the number and magnitude of changes in the college sports landscape are astounding as I approach my 70th decade of life. These are not matters that my leadership would be able to corral during my tenure. Continuity of leadership will be needed, and I am choosing to step aside to let the university find that leader." I read that statement, and I hear I'm about to be 70 years old. This NIL thing, no thanks. I kind of feel for him because I don't know that I would want that job. What do you think when you hear that statement?
Yeah, I thought it was extremely notable, that statement, because a lot of times anything in a press release, it's a whole lot of words that say a whole lot of nothing. I thought that was actually interesting and an acknowledgement on some level that for the last couple of years, Ray Anderson and Dr. Michael Crow have not wanted to be in the NIL game, pretty much. They were behind most other schools, didn't want to be involved with it, more interested in the academics and the Olympic sports, and don't want to have what is primarily football and men's basketball, be in that kind of race with everyone else and have to do it that way. And this was Ray on some level saying like, okay, yeah, this has to happen. I'm not the guy to do it. And It's the same thing you think about like the Roy Williams and I don't know, I think Coach K was better at it, but Jim Boeheim, like the number of old school coaches, and we're going basketball there, but like the guys that have retired in the last couple of years because at least partly like they're getting older and the way college sports have changed, the landscape's shifting incredibly fast. They're like, this isn't for me anymore.
Sure. It's because it's not amateur athletics. It's professional athletics. And when you see words that say the student athlete, you're like, well, I mean, this kid's been at 3 different schools. and part of me, look, I mean, I've been critical of Ray Anderson on the air, and I think there's plenty to criticize here as we continue this conversation. But this isn't the job that he took. Now, he was at the NFL, and he was in charge of the replacement referee situation. That didn't work out, so he left the NFL. You can read into it, whatever you want to read into it, and took this job. And there was a lot of excitement, and he hired Herm Edwards. And I remember thinking at the time, it's a little bit of a conflict of interest that you just hired your former client and your really good friend, but this is ASU. You have to think outside the box. Herm had some initial success, and you thought, okay, this can work. Then they fire their entire staff, or a lot of the old guys on the staff, bring in new guys. The old guys on the staff presumably turn in the new guys on the staff for cheating. Everybody turns on each other. Antonio Pierce took the fall, and now he's the coach of the Raiders. I mean, you can't the Raiders. You can't even make this up. COVID happens. Your quarterback transfers to LSU, and now he's the front runner for the Heisman Trophy. Is that what happened? Sorry, I blacked out.
Gosh, Jaden Daniels. What was it? The first player in college football history to pass for 300 and rush for 200?
Why couldn't that happen here?
He was
we
so
don't have
far
nice
from
stuff.
that his second year here.
Right.
My gosh.
Was he checked out, though? Or was something?
Yes. Something, I mean, things were off.
Yeah.
Things were off. And it's certainly plenty of it is like who's around you and the offense and like so many things obviously change who a player is. Everything is centered around, for Ray Anderson, is centered around the Herm Edwards hire. And on the surface, like it's not a bad thing to me to go outside the box and try something different.
I wanted to fire Todd Graham, though. Just for the record, and actually, I would rehire Todd Graham to either the guy's he's amazing at raising money. I might even hire him as athletic director, and he could hire a little deputy who could do all the work for him. I love Todd Graham. I'm a huge Todd Graham. I wrote his book, but go ahead.
So it's not a bad thing just to hire Herm,
right?
But when the devils turn to hell, if you will, like then it comes back to that. And when you hire a guy who also was not prepared for the change in college sports and maybe wasn't prepared for college sports as it was, that he'd been outside of NCAA for several decades, then it does come back to that hire not being the right thing in the first place, and everything that happened throughout that, and the way he handled Herm's dismissal, buying him out for $4.4 million instead of firing his friend and former client for cause, laying the self-imposed postseason ban on the feet of the new coaches when he did it. Because, Kenny Dillingham takes the job knowing that might happen or something along those lines could happen, but doing it hours literally before the season opener. Like everything that's happened in the last couple of years, it pretty much all circles back to Herm Edwards in that era.
Right, and you had a chance to talk to Brad Denny from Sun Devil Source right here at Arizona's Family. What did y'all do your own podcast? Are you cheating on me with this podcast? But good conversation there, right? He was a guy that was at the Rose Bowl on Saturday night. Yeah,
we talked about a lot of these things that you and I are talking about now, and Brad, as a longtime close, someone who's covered the program and ASU athletics in general very closely, had some good insight. All right, so Brad, you were at the Rose Bowl on Saturday.
I was.
We've seen the fan base and kind of the growing displeasure, and there have been T-shirts, there have been billboards, there have been signs. Did it surprise you at all that on the road after a pretty damn big win that the fan base turned to, oh, wait, there's Ray Anderson, we need to chant at him?
I was not surprised at all because he has become, honestly, the kind of the biggest villain in Sun Devil athletic circles over the last couple of years. Basically, the kind of the fallout of the 2021 season football, the NCAA investigation that's still ongoing, the way the Herm Edwards buyout or departure was handled, and giving his old buddy a $4.4 million check on his way out the door, and just kind of the state of the football program now. He's become, as you mentioned, just the target of fans' ire, the billboards, the websites, just everything. And so down there on the field after one of the best wins in recent memory, with fans cheering and chanting ASU, players jumping into the stands, taking selfies with the fans, and then Ray comes out and all, like a light switch, the chants go from ASU to Ray, you suck. And so just like it kind of made sense in terms of just like he's the biggest heel for in Sun Devil fans' eyes to get that kind of reception. It's almost had like a pro wrestling feel to it.
Okay, so I was just reading a Doug Holler column, and he made a very good point that you can have a lot of times in pro sports, ownership, management, there are heels or there are people that are disliked by the fan base, but it may or may not matter all that much. College athletics, a little bit different because of the fundraising aspect. How much of a sense do you have that the last couple of years that Ray's continued presence affected the athletic department's ability to raise money and raise interest, basically?
I think it had a significant impact. I mean, I've heard from a number of people personally and from, just kind of running the circles that there was a lot of dollars being withheld basically until Ray Anderson either resigned or was shown the door. And so now you've seen like such a big push today. I mean, Kenny Dillingham during his Monday press conference making a very concerted effort, even more so than he had recently in terms of, we need rapid improvement. I think he said rapid 5 times. I mean, he was pushing that. You've seen the Sun Angel Foundation, the collective, really making a rude effort saying if we can get 500 new people today. And so the dollars I do expect to start flowing. Now, whether that'll be enough, that remains to be seen, because I think the big interesting thing here is the timing of the move. We're about 4 weeks before the transfer portal opens up and the early signing period begins next month. ASU has a long way to go in terms of NIL. I sat down with Ray a couple of years ago for a podcast and asked him, what is ASU doing to kind of close the gap? And this is a couple of years ago. He mentioned, that's not something we want. We don't want to get in an arms race, was the term that he used, which was kind of, eyebrow raising at the time. He said, us developing players for the NFL will be the selling point, which is complete nonsense. And so ASU obviously has been in this significant hole for a number of years in terms of NIL. So I think with Ray out the door, that the money should start coming in more at a greater pace. But if it's going to be enough to have a tangible impact in this initial transfer portal window remains to be seen. But I do think it can only help in terms of fundraising.
Is there a way that you think of to illustrate like how far behind ASU has gotten in the last couple of years? And like how much of a difference do you think it would have made if Ray stepped down a year ago, 2 years ago, for the current ASU football setup?
I think, you just look around the country at how many former ASU players are doing really well in some key spots. Jaden Daniels is among the Heisman frontrunners. Now, obviously, that's a situation that, if Ray had not overseen it, the NIL's an impact there in the investigation. You look at guys like Johnny Wilson having great success at Florida State, Ricky Pearsall down. The list goes on. And so you just see like all these very talented players that ASU was able to initially bring in the door, but you can't keep them. And even when Kenny got here, one of the first things he said is, I need NIL basically in terms of more for retention rather than acquisition. And they were able to do that to a degree. Elijah Badger's still here. Jalen Conyers is still here. That's good for year one, that for this season, but where is that going forward? Now with Ray out the door, perhaps that has the optimism of keeping some of the key guys, the foundations, some of the newcomers that have proven themselves here. Because ASU, the record's not great, but they've shown some strides. So you don't want to have to rebuild from scratch like they did last year when they brought in 78 new players. You want to be able to keep that core and build off this kind of year zero success.
Going back to where we started with the fans chanting at him in Southern California, do you think the pressure to step down came from the fans ultimately? Like him and Michael Crow were pretty close as far as I could tell. Do you think you have any sense as to whether Ray recognized like this is too much and that it was coming from the fans, or it was anywhere else that ultimately made him decide I need to step down?
I don't know that was like maybe necessarily the straw that broke the camel's back. It was certainly on the radar. And
I don't necessarily mean like Saturday in specific, but
the mounting pressure
over the last year or two.
Sure. It was definitely on the radar, but I do think, maybe perhaps, adjacent to that is the big money boosters. You saw the kind of, it all comes back to dollars and cents, and just the people that can fund this program that, it's well been documented. ASU is the sleeping giant. It has all this potential. How real that is these days, we don't know, but you can't even begin to like formulate an answer until the money situation, the NIL, the willingness to adapt to the modern college landscape greatly improves. And we saw just the hesitancy of the program, the leadership, Ray Anderson, of adopting those principles and that mindset. And so I think it was the people behind the scenes, whether, those kind of the boosters basically who decided Kenny Dillingham's our guy, and, not Ray Anderson, not Michael Crow, is bringing in this unproven first-year head coach, granted with the ASU ties. So I think those kind of maybe same people are making their reach a point of just like, this cannot go on. We need change, and Sun Devil Athletics needs a fresh start.
Is there any other element to this that we haven't hit on, or you think like just getting a sense of what people are talking about today that isn't being mentioned that's relevant or notable with Ray or even moving forward?
It's going to be interesting to see like where they go from here, because again, Michael Crow is still the guy that is that president of the university, and so I've seen a lot of people being very hesitant, and while kind of celebrating the victory. It's like, okay, we won this battle, but like, how do we win the war, and where do we go from here? And whether it is Michael Crow, a guy who's shown that he's not necessarily the most committed towards athletics. What he's done on the academic side of things, wonderful, but for the ASU fans and obviously for the whole athletics is the front door, front porch of your university and all the positive impact. We'll see exactly where they go from here in terms of the next guy. And so the worst thing would be is to get out of this quagmire of a situation to replace with another guy who perhaps is little maybe old school in his mindset and his focus. So it would be. I do think that perhaps the lessons have been learned, but where they go from here will be very critical. I think in the near term you will see an uptick in money, so that'd be good. How the roster, from a football perspective, is retained will be key as well. But I am very curious to see what kind of athletic director, especially given kind of the arms race with the move to the Big 12, and it's going to be pretty difficult there too, as it was in the Pac-12. You need a kind of a guy who's more forward thinking, had that visionary aspect, and the guy can just kind of schmooze and mingle with those donors and get those dollars up to a level that allows ASU to compete.
I thought it was notable that in the press release Monday that Ray basically acknowledged, I'm getting older, I'm about to turn 70, and this changing landscape and all these things that are happening, more or less, I'm not equipped to do that anymore. So if he's saying that, you would hope that Michael Crow and leadership that are hiring the next person also recognize that it cannot be the same type, that it has to be that visionary type of person you're talking about.
Yeah, and so Michael Crow, for all his record with athletics, he's a smart guy. He's obviously reached a level of success. So hopefully he's not ignorant to the fact that we need, this is the kind of the profile of the candidate that we need to advance the ball to finally get to Sun Devil athletics to kind of maybe to meet the level of Sun Devil academics, the university at that level. So they like to pride themselves on being the 9-time national champions in innovation. So let's see if they can innovate themselves a good hire.
All right, so Brad Denny is one of those guys that's poured his heart and soul into his podcast, and he's at Arizona State practice every day, and he's a guy that's been there up close and personal, and he's felt it, and he felt it on Saturday night, much like the Sun Devil faithful who felt it on Saturday night. Changing athletic directors, in my opinion, there's going to be a learning curve. You could go get Rocky Harris, who was in the athletic department, and things didn't go well. Was he sent away to work on USA Triathlon? Can you get him back? You need somebody who really knows and loves what ASU is about. You've been here for a couple of years now. How many years have you been here?
4.
4. Is ASU a sleeping giant, or is it a mirage in the desert, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think the attractiveness of the school to me in the state, I'll just say from someone who'd never stepped foot into the state of Arizona before moving here, I love this place. And so many other people obviously do, with the way the population grows every single day and has for several decades.
You're one of those Californians coming in here.
Technically, yes. Just that by itself, like the attractiveness of living here, makes ASU a sleeping giant.
Interesting. All right, let's bring in Joe from behind the glass. Sun Devil Joe Ferris, our trusty sports producer here, who went to ASU, bleeds maroon and gold. Is this a good day, great day, or is there going to be a lot of work to do to clean this up that you just don't realize the work ahead here?
Quite frankly, this is a great day.
Very frankly.
Very frankly. Yeah, it's a great day. We've been waiting for this for a while. I think he should have been tied to Herm because he was his friend and his hire who let go of Graham. And then a couple days later, we have Herm. And, without a coaching search, it's like, all right, you're tied to this guy. And if he succeeds, great. If he fails, you got to go down with him. And that didn't happen. And I thought all three, Crow, Herm, and Ray, should have gone down. I'm kind of turning more on on Crow. Like, he's okay. But having now Herm gone and now Ray, it's great.
All right. Are you a fan, though, of the swing for the fences with this? Because at ASU, obviously, it has not worked since they went to the Rose Bowl with Jake Plummer and Pat Tillman. So you have to do something. I mean, you've tried a bunch of different swings here. What's the swing that's going to work? What is in the water here that is keeping this place from being what we all know it could be?
I think it's got to be someone that's really focused on football and basketball. And we love all the other sports and how great they are. And as a Sun Devil, very proud of swimming, very proud of hockey, very proud of these other smaller sports. But you get known for football, you get known for basketball. That's how you get your name into a brand. And I think that has to be a focus. And the academics is great that they've done. But really, everyone knows football. Everyone knows basketball. That's how you generate money. That's how you generate the brand, and just try to focus on football and keeping the players you have and getting players come in. This is a great, like Nick said, a great place to live, to go to school. I went on campus immediately and was like, wow, look at the place I picked. I didn't visit before I got accepted. Took a tour with my dad. I'm like, I found like this diamond kind of blindly, and that was 20 years ago, and it's improved vastly. So I think focus on football, and now that you're in the Big 12 with more like schools that do focus on football, that's going to be huge.
Another damn Californian coming to Arizona.
Driving up home prices. But, I mean, how quickly can this thing turn around? Because, Nick, I know you got to go get back in the air. You got to do 9 more TV hits. You've seen it, Joe. You've seen Dirk Cutter. You've seen. I mean, I would find a way to get Todd Graham involved, and I feel like Kenny Dillingham is on Todd Graham's coaching tree, and Todd Graham could just be here raising money. And I mean, the man is gifted. Who else could you put in a situation of leadership that would activate the Valley?
I think you've got the right coaches at those two sports right now. Kenny Dillingham and Bobby Hurley. Like, those guys have fully embraced what college sports is now. What the athletic director does, man, that's like that's the question to me. I just think the biggest thing is the athletic director not making people, how many negatives can I put in here? Not want to contribute to the school and to the student athletes.
I mean, do you just have an athletic director who's like a true athletic director, and it's like, it's my job to like schedule the games and make sure we have enough gear, and you have like the chief fundraising officer who's like the vice president of athletics, like a professional model, like the pro model? What do you think, Joe?
I kind of like that idea of just maybe someone focused on that. But again, we don't exactly know what a athletic director does other than hire coaches. So, we don't know a name. We don't, you can say Rocky Harris, and I've seen that online. But the person they hire is probably someone we don't know, that's an assistant somewhere at a big school and is excited to activate the Valley.
All right, very well said. Can you wear a tie next time? Nick wore a tie. I didn't wear a tie.
I'm not on air.
Okay. You don't know what Joe looks like here on the podcast. We're going to keep it that way. Very handsome man. Very tall, too. All right, so I think we accomplished a lot as we wrap up here, Nick. Arizona State, football, basketball, baseball. Which one plays for something of substance? Hockey? What's the next big Sun Devil sporting event that we're going to watch and all get excited about?
Man, I was not overly impressed with hoops on Saturday at their home opener. I will say
women's
that.
Hoops had like 12 steals in their opener. They might be the one.
They might be a couple years away.
Yeah,
would be my sense. But at first glance, men's basketball did not strike me as impressive as last year's group did. But I know there's one player they're waiting to get word on from the NCAA as to whether or not he can play. They're going to be long and impressive defensively. I'll still go with that Bobby Hurley will have them back in the tournament.
I'm going the ranked Sun Devil hockey team. Makes a run at the Frozen Four.
Let's go.
And we all go crazy. Pack your bags now. And cue it up, 8 o'clock on November 13th. That's when this is said. I think we accomplished a lot. Good stuff here, guys. And the Ray Anderson era is over. The next era will soon begin with, I guess the next era is already underway. So we'll talk more about it tonight on the Extra Point television show, the Valley's only nightly local sports show. And the Extra Point podcast is a production of 3TV, CBS 5, and azfamily.com in Phoenix, Arizona.